Super Plus.
Greetings and welcome to the Hills of Steel 2 Tank Breakdown series. I'm your host Andrew and we're back with a new tank in the series. This time we're going to be taking a look at a support tank, Morty. Of course, Morty comes with all the usual skins as well as attachments. For the particular attachments that we're using, we want to specialize in actually being more of a support than we are that of an attacker. With the attachments, we have built it so that we have additional bonus to our special, which is not actually an attack, although it does say on the statistic window a number that does seem like an attack. So we want to increase our special, do a little bit of extra damage so that we can help our teammates out, and to be able to survive a little on our own. But you can play Morty in many different ways. So let's actually jump into some gameplay and see why Morty is different and classified as a support tank. We'll start off by taking a look at some Rampage. There are two things to note when playing Morty. Firstly is your attack. You can sit back at range, you have 5 shots, and you will fire off, as his name implies, little mortar bombs. These bombs will hit the ground, bounce around for a second, and then do damage. You can use this to your advantage while attacking from range to bounce the shells off hills, take advantage of firing them over hills, or from a great range to do a lot of damage to the enemy team. After we've built up our special, we can use this to create a large explosion. You'll see this on screen by the big green circular explosion. This will heal all of our friendly tanks in range. You can usually get your tanks back to full health, so this is an incredibly strong special to be using, particularly in events like Rampage, where the objective is to kill the enemy team. By using the heal, you deny the enemies and keep your team alive, which will end up leading to victory. So the idea of Morty in Rampage is to do a lot of damage from range and use your special to help support your team. And this can apply to many other events as well. Whenever using Morty, terrain is key as well, because you'll want to sit safely behind hills and use your mortar shells to fire over hills, or by bouncing them carefully off the hill to get them over and do a lot of damage. But let's now see that in action in a different game mode. In boss mode, there's obviously 2 different sides you can be on. When playing as Morty on the team side, you can do the usual. Sit back, fire your mortars from range, and then use your special to heal your teammates if need be. This makes it very easy because in boss mode, when you're fighting against just a one tank, if their attention is elsewhere, you can just sit back and fire your mortars over the hill, doing a lot of damage. Of course, when the mortars fire, there's a little arc to them, so sometimes you need to be careful that you're not firing over and too far or too short. In most cases, when you fire too short, the mortar will hit the ground and bounce forward a bit, usually ending up at the tank anyway. But if you fire over the tank, chances are it won't be hitting the tank at all. If, however, you find yourself in a situation where the enemy is in a little bit of a dip with a hill behind them, you can fire at the hill behind them and the mortar will come back down the hill towards them. So always be aware of where the enemy is, where you're positioned, and where your mortars are going to be hitting and landing to take advantage of that. However, in boss mode, there are 2 different sides. Now we switch over to Morty as the boss. And this is where it gets a little bit more challenging. As Morty, you're able to sit behind the hill and use your mortars to just fire over the top and do a lot of damage. Of course, in boss mode, you get the increased health and increased damage. And with 5 shots available on Morty, it means that it is not so difficult to sit behind this hill and use the mortars to do a lot of damage to help take victory. Especially when you have a hill in front of you that protects you, and a hill that when you fire your mortars over, they will slide down into the enemies. So this makes it very easy to actually defend your position as a boss. There are, of course, a number of things to take into consideration when playing as Morty as the solo boss mode. As we stated early, if you fire too early, you might not hit the tanks, and if you fire too late, as shown here, you will end up missing the tank and giving them the opportunity to push into you. And once tanks actually get close, there's nothing you can do about it except for try to get the mortars onto the hill and roll back down to do the damage. This can be very challenging if you can't get the right position, and it gives the advantage to the enemy team to be able to charge in and try and take the victory. Fortunately though, we were able to secure the win here. So be careful when playing as the boss mode on your own with Morty. There is another disadvantage, however. If you play in duel mode in a one-on-one situation, you don't get the size like you do in boss mode, which means increased health and increased damage, which means that in some cases certain tanks, like here the Phoenix, is able to quickly push in and our mortar shells are going over the top, and there's nothing that we can do. So this is a really difficult thing to do in duel mode. A lot of the tanks that you will go up against will be able to quickly chase you down and do a lot of damage, and there's not really much you can do in return. So when playing as Morty, be careful when going into the duel one-on-one modes, as you may end up in a very bad situation, like you can see here. But Morty is more specialized to playing in team modes, so what have we learned? When playing Morty in a team, sit back at range and use your mortar shells to do a lot of damage to the enemy team and build up your special. Keep your special for whenever the right time it's needed so that you can help heal your team and get them back up. Of course, in other game modes like Bunker, Morty is very strong because you can sit back and fire the mortars over the top of the enemies into the bunker and do a lot of damage. Other than that, the positioning is key. Learn where to sit, where your mortars are going to bounce, and where they're going to roll to do damage. With practice, you'll be able to support your team the best and get a lot of victories. This concludes our tank breakdown for Morty, the support tank. Don't forget to like and subscribe, follow our social medias, and join our Discord to keep up to date with all the content around all our games. If you have any hints or tips on how you play Morty, don't forget to leave them in the comments below for new players or other people interested in playing Morty. Until the next time, have fun, and we will see you on the hills.